You are listening to Thank Me for My Cervix, a podcast where we talk about everything mental health with a focus in the veteran and the military community. I'm your host, Marine Corps veteran Shauna Marie. And as always, you can listen to every episode live on Instagram. You can watch the reruns on YouTube, and you can listen to the audio on Spotify. We do have t-shirts, link in the bio, and my Amazon link is also in the bio. And if you are trying to be a guest on the podcast, if you're passionate about mental health, you don't have to be in the service. If you just are passionate about making a difference, message me and let's get you on this podcast. Because today's guest he's just a badass. I am so excited that he's taking the time to come and talk to me today. So we're going to go ahead and get him on because he's already requested, and let him introduce himself.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me today.
Oh my gosh. No, thank you for having me.
It's going to be awesome. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm just going to learn about you so everyone else can too.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and how you got to choose the Marine Corps.
So I grew up in what's called Levittown, represent the 215, but it's right outside Philadelphia, so Pennsylvania. Some people don't know where Philadelphia is. They think it's its own state, but that's cool. It kind of is.
Yeah. It kind of really is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny because I grew up in Pennsylvania too, kind of, but in the Pittsburgh area. So when you say Pennsylvania, they always are like, oh, Pittsburgh, and it's actually like an hour outside of Pittsburgh, but I just say, yeah, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Honestly, you could take Pennsylvania and split it down the middle, and there's people from Pittsburgh and people from Philadelphia.
That's so funny. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So were you grew up there the whole time? Is that where you joined out of and everything?
Yeah, so I actually, there was like a small RSS like in Levittown, right down the street from me. I actually used to walk there when I first like joined like the poolies and all that. Yeah, so actually, yeah, right in that shopping center, right near like a Wawa. Some people don't know what that is, but
I do know about, yeah.
It's a godsend. Yes, it's a godsend. But yeah, they had the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps all in the same shopping center. So I actually started by going to the Navy one. And the guy really didn't give me the time of day, if I'm being quite honest. He was kind of just kicking it. And my older brother went with me. My older brother was in Desert Storm. He was in the Navy.
Okay.
So he kind of had a heavy influence. My mom thought I was joining the Navy. She didn't want me to join the Marines. She didn't really know much. She thought they were just, bullet collectors, body bags,
Yeah, same with my mom.
Yeah, so my brother took me. I went. I asked him what's a Marine, and he was like, dude, if I think anybody could do it in our family, it's you. You've got the mentality for it, so go for it. So here I am almost exactly 13 years later. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're still active duty.
I am. Yeah.
So awesome. I really love that. That's so great. So what was your original MOS? Do you still have the same MOS? What was your job going in? Like, how did you pick?
So essentially, I wanted so bad to be military police. I wanted to be a pig. I wanted to be a snitch. I know it's disgusting. I've met some really good ones, but I'm really kind of like glad I didn't really step into that job, because I became a motor T operator instead, which is so colorful, so dirty, grimy. I wouldn't trade any of the dudes and dudettes I've met in this MOS for anything, because it's a huge melting pot. And I mean, that was the first time I ever seen like a grown woman dip, like full on.
No, I definitely have dip. The military was like a different Shauna. I like think back to the stuff that I did, and I'm like, I was a savage. Yeah. Why?
Yeah, and I feel
what
like
I think about military police is like, because everyone that I know joins, they either go like, there's like a field side, and then like the people at the gate, like the PMO, the police officers that actually drive around. And like the field side can be fun, but it's just like you're gone a lot. And then it's very rare to actually get to do the fun stuff where you're actually like being law enforcement in the military.
I eventually got to do like the gate thing. So I got fapped out when I was like a little Lance Corporal. But
I didn't know that until I was a sergeant, that all the people at the gate were really, that's not their MOS usually. They're fapped there.
Yep. Yeah. So it was cool because I did it at Cherry Point. So back in 2012, it was really small. They didn't have enough military police to actually do the job. So they actually taught me how to do like the 5811. So I got to drive the squad car. I got to do like,
Ah,
yeah, I got to even turn on the lights and look like a badass. Like, yeah, oh, it was
that's
awesome.
cool.
I
That's super cool.
I only gave tickets to staff and above. Um, I was a lance corporal with so much power. You know, sergeant below, I just thought they were getting after it. Like, fuck it if they're speeding. Like, let's give them a
That's so
warning. Yeah, but yeah, if they were a staff sergeant or any type of officer, more than likely to get a ticket from me. Yeah, it was just funny. Yeah.
that is funny. So you ended up going Motor T. Do you drive them or do you work on them?
So I'll say a driver. Yeah, I'm a wheelman. Meals on Wheels. We're called a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't really know much, honestly, because I'm an air winger. Um, so I don't really know much other than a couple other people that I've talked to about Motor T. Is it typical that you like start off as a maintenance person and then work your way as a driver, or like you designated
Well,
driver maintenance?
yeah. So sometimes when people join, like it's almost like it's almost own version of open contract. So open contract, the Marine Corps got full disposal to say you're going to go do this, you're going to go do that. Well, if you go in as the Motor T option, then they're going to pick for you if you're a mechanic or an operator.
Okay.
I was lucky enough when I joined, I knew I was going to be an operator, because I told them, quite frankly, I've never been mechanically inclined. I can barely do Legos. Like, let's be real. So, um,
That's funny. The Air Wing's the same way in a sense where everyone kind of goes in open contract and then like through the schooling they assign you to aircrafts or like different like I was avionics, like aircraft avionics.
okay.
And then not until after schooling was I like, oh, you're gonna go to Hueys and Cobras and that's your platform that you're gonna be on.
That sounds so cool because they pretty much took me and they were like, "You're gonna learn how to drive this truck," and um, yeah, that's about it. No, but honestly, like I used to be super embarrassed when I was a young Marine to tell people that I was Motor T because right, the way everybody else sees it is they're like, "Oh, you're just a truck driver," and I hated that idea. I never had like a cool like acronym to go with it, you know. Maybe I've got a 3531 tattoo somewhere on me. I don't know, but it's not as cool as like the 0311. Oh, that's okay. That's sick though. I like that.
Is that
I know.
love?
I could see it now. So I do see that. That looks
My
cool.
photos hat.
Yeah.
That's
I have a
nice to
bunch of
say.
tattoos, but yeah.
So what is interesting about that job is that you're working alongside with the grunts and like the ground side a lot, but they still give you that title like Pogue, and I hate it. I'm an air winger. I'm a Pogue. Period.
Yeah.
Um,
So I
and
think
even like the terminology that's used in those communities, it is like I can see how you'd be like, oh, I'm embarrassed to say it, but that's because of that mentality that's within the community.
oh yeah, I mean I've had like the ultimate privilege. The greatest thing about Motor T is that it can go anywhere. Like everybody always needs wheels. So if you're Motor T, you have an opportunity to go on so many different types of deployments. Motor T really is, in my opinion, the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Like, because we'll do anything. We don't give a shit as long as we have like cigarettes, energy drinks, tobacco of any sort.
You're
As
in.
long yeah, we'll sleep anywhere. We don't care. I mean, we'll drink whatever. Honestly, we're not really scared of shit. We're like the biggest melting pot. I truly believe in the Marine Corps. But what I was gonna say is, my first unit was like an MWSS, so at an air wing unit at Cherry Point. I learned a shit ton there as an operator. Then I went to 2-3, which is the infantry battalion. Then I went to a radio battalion, so hung out with like what you would think is nerds, signals and intelligence dudes, but those guys are cool as shit. And then I got to be a schoolhouse instructor, and
Oh my
um,
gosh, you kind of did everything.
yeah, and then I'll skip a unit, and then because I'll come back to it, I guess I'll skip a unit, and then I work at Raider Regiment at MARSOC, and I'm still doing the same job, Motor T through and through.
That's awesome.
Yep.
It's awesome that you got to experience. My sister, shout out to my sister, she was combat camera.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
She got to do some cool stuff and just like tagging along, like cool
Yeah.
stuff, just be there.
See,
So that's awesome, like that you got to get those experiences.
No, I think that's an awesome job, to be honest. Combat camera, like I love doing, like I have a camera. I love to take photos, do videos, stuff like that. But the fact that like somebody gets to do that and gets paid for it by the Marine Corps. Like not only are you getting paid, but you're getting a place to stay. You're getting, food on your plate, medical, dental. You get
She
to
had this
travel.
set up.
That
She had this set up, and she was really good at it. So she got to do all of these opportunities. She's just talented with the camera, and then got to also be a
yeah.
Marine. So it was really awesome that she got that experience. And then now when people ask me like if you could go change your job, because aviation was cool, I got a lot of knowledge, but I didn't really get to go do a bunch of fun, cool things.
Yeah.
And if I could go back, I probably would try to do some sort of like affairs job where I get to travel more.
I don't know. Honestly, I might become an MCCS clerk and just work in like the PX if I'm being real. Um, I,
Do you know
I,
that there's some Marines who get paid to just work in the gym?
oh yeah, that's a FAP too. So when I was at Kaneohe Bay, we had FAPs that would either go to the gate, to sometimes the mess hall, sometimes the armory, and then there were the ones at the gym. And oh my gosh, that has to be the best one, hands down. Like especially if you are a gym enthusiast already.
Yeah.
You're pretty much working where you could probably sleep there too. You could probably do everything you need right there on the spot as a FAP. So, I mean, I feel like there's so much more hidden opportunity in the Marine Corps, and I wish people like really saw the good in a lot of things you could do. But I'll be the first one to say too, um, people like retention nowadays is hard. People don't want to stay in. Um,
It
people,
was hard when before I got out, obviously, before like the COVID BS, before a lot of the changes that the military has made, and it had a terrible retention rate then.
yeah.
So now I really.
But I honestly, I never knock anybody for getting out, whether you do 4 years or 22 or whatever the in between, because as long as you're applying yourself, it doesn't even have like, do you think I want to get out and be a truck driver? Absolutely not. I think my wife would leave me. Um, but in the reality is though, like use whatever you can from the Marine Corps as like stepping stone, whether you're doing school while you're in or just getting courses knocked out. There's so much opportunity there and so many doors. I mean, networking is like the number one thing, especially because of like social media. You come across people that have spent time in the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Army, whatever it is, and then you just automatically like link. It's like we all are embedded with like our own like haptics that are linked together. I mean, kind of like how we cross paths. I looked at your
Oh,
podcast. As soon as it said USMC vet, I was like, oh, this is probably sick then. And I
oh
started
yeah,
watching.
same with the same exact thing. And what I will say is, I wanted to track back on something about Marines. This is just Marine based, but really anybody in the military, not taking advantage of everything that's offered to them, because I didn't. I did not take advantage. I did not go to school. I did not prepare myself to better be like to be good when I got out. And
Yeah.
I will say part of that has to do with leadership,
Yep.
because it's their knowledge, especially being young. I didn't give a shit. I did not care about learning about, I cared about right now. And right now I was in the Marine Corps, and that's what I was focused on. I was working on helicopters, and I was doing all that was what I was focused on. And had a leader or someone that at that time been like, all right, well, what's after this? Even just once had to get me thinking about that. But I was just so ready to get out by the time I was getting out that I was just like, fuck DRS. Screw all this learning. I don't want any of this. Just get what I have to do to get out. And now I'm like, well, shit. If I would have just got my head out of my butt and used the resources or asked questions or, did that. And it's not just the leadership's fault, obviously, because the information's there for me and I just didn't take it.
Yep.
But that's why I like doing this, because I'm speaking to other people and they're like, yeah, we've changed that. I'm making sure I give my
Yeah.
young Marines knowledge.
Yeah. I would say too, like a lot of it does have to do with leadership. I mean, I'm not trying to boast or brag. I see some buddies that I know like joining, looking at this. They're probably like, dude, I love this guy. And I had an all-time great leader. His name at the time was Gunnery Sergeant AG. But now he's Gunner AG. So dude's definitely progressed through his career and probably for, the best for everybody. But he told me a long time ago, you have to be a good dude before you can be a solid Marine. And I like kept that with me. And he was
I love
like,
that. That
and
kind of
he
gave me
was,
chills.
oh yeah, same here. Same. I actually almost made hair grow back in on my head, but yeah. Um, he,
Because
he told me that.
Yeah.
I kept it with me that like you legitimately have to, you have to set aside sometimes yourself and care about what your Marines, if they have an influence to do something else or something better than what their worth is at the time, like give them the opportunity, provide them the resources. It's hard sometimes because even higher ups now, right? So I still have people that are above me.
Yeah.
They don't know everything. So I can't expect them to give me all the tools, but you can definitely lean on them and gain from their experiences, their thoughts a little bit. And then you have to go search. The most staff NCO anybody's ever, the most staff NCO thing to say of all time ever is nobody cares about your career more than you. I used to hate that when I was younger,
Mm.
but it actually does apply. If you don't, like, that's how I got involved in being an assist member, so applied suicide intervention skills team member. Like, that's how I got into that because,
I super want to talk about that too, like its own
yeah,
little thing. But yeah, I wanted to touch on something. Oh, what I'll say is like good leaders, good leaders that are doing well naturally motivate those underneath them to
yeah,
be better. And and being when you take on that responsibility of being a leader, you need to mentally accept that
yeah,
you are taking on these people too that you're going to be leading and guiding, and it's a big thing. So okay,
yeah,
um, so let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about the program that you were just telling
yeah,
me about. What
yeah,
what
yeah.
how did you find out about it? What got you involved in that?
Oh man, I don't think so. I never knew it existed. Obviously, we do, as a Marine too, like you go through annual training. There's always like back in the saddle, 100, yeah, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like 101 days of summer, stuff like that. There's always like the you map it. So I first started as like a you map it instructor just because, to be honest, it just was like one little statistic that sets you apart from your peers
Right.
when you're talking like hit rep and all that. But I just genuinely like talking. My wife hates it, but yeah. Um, yeah, so I just generally like teaching and like putting a spin on things where people are going to understand and know that it's okay to, smile, smirk at comments, laugh a little bit, like loosen up. So that's always been something I've really like tried to drive home. But I would have never known about this program until my brother committed suicide. Never would have known. So I
Mm-hmm.
see it as such. You could take all the negatives. Now, I would say in 2019 when my brother committed suicide, I probably had like a good 2.5, almost 3 weeks of just absolutely beating myself down, drinking, trying to get to the bottom of a bottle to forget. But then it just kind of clicked to me that no matter how much I drink or sleep or avoid conversation or anything like that, like it's not benefiting myself, anybody. I during that time, like hats off to my wife because I didn't talk to her for like 2 weeks. Like I'm so serious. Like we were in separate. She was back in Pennsylvania. I was in Hawaii. We didn't talk. I barely said anything to my kids. Like I was so lost. Didn't even talk to my mom or anything. Friends, like I said, I had good friends that, kept me afloat. I had an awesome command at the time that was like, hey, dude, take the 2 weeks to yourself. When you're ready, come back to us. And I was the platoon sergeant. So at the time, it was like, I still had shit I wanted to do. And luckily, I had people that picked up my slack at the time and knew how to step in. So um, after like my 2.5 weeks of just being, whoever I wanted to be at that time and being lost,
Being sad, which is understandable.
yeah.
Like you can't be too hard on yourself. You went through something traumatic.
Oh, yeah.
Took 2 weeks, got it together,
Yeah,
and then
so then I walked into my chaplain's office and I just showed up to work. Like Cammy's on, ready to go, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, like we didn't know you were coming back. Like why didn't you tell us?" Like as if they should have had like something really planned. And I just wanted to treat it like, hey, just treat me like life goes on.
yeah.
I don't want to be treated differently. I'm not a high risk. So um, I went and talked. First person was like my master sergeant. So Master Sergeant Stevens, that dude's phenomenal. He was like, "Oh, you okay? Like, I don't know what to say." And I was like, "Yeah, Top, we're good. Like,
I don't think
let's
I know
not."
what to say either
Hmm.
at all.
And he was like, "Do you need to talk to someone or what?" I said, "Actually, I'm gonna go talk to the chaplain." Now, of course, he assumed like, okay, he's getting it started. Like, he's gonna go talk to chaps. He's gonna pour his heart out. This is gonna heighten, whatever. he was like, yeah, do what you gotta do. So he said, you want me to walk you over? And I was like, absolutely not. So yeah, and he's a Master Stevens, a good dude, cares, and for the right reasons. So um, I go over to the chaplain's office, and the first thing he said to me, I knocked on his door, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, Sergeant Scott, I've been waiting to see you," and I treated it as in like, all right, let's make a joke real quick, because for me, for a chaplain to say like, I've been waiting to see you, it's like he's almost expecting to see you for like all the wrong reasons, and I was like, wait, why are you waiting to see me? And he was like, well, because of and I was like, what? Because my brother killed himself?
Oh my
And,
god.
and he was just like, if you feel, I said, sir, dude, we're good for real.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to come talk to you because how can I help? And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm supposed to help you. And I said, no, I get that. I said, but I think truly for the type of person I am, I'm going to find help for myself by helping others. And that's how I got started. He was like, hey, have you ever heard of Assist? And I asked about it. And it's like a 2-week course where you learn how to pretty much inspire hope and a reason and a purpose for sticking around. So I've been used about 4 times throughout my military career, or from the time of being certified to now, where usually commands know who we are. They'll call us like, hey, I've got this individual. I don't really know like what's going on, but can you go intervene a little bit? Can you go talk to them? And then that's what we go do. And small example would be, I'll use you if you don't mind, just so I don't have to talk about an actual case.
Absolutely.
So if I were to show up to you and maybe you had some suicide ideations or thoughts, or it was kind of just generating, we try to be utilized in the very beginning, right as everything gets kicked off, because we're pretty much like a good stepping stone for resources. So whether it's MCCS, MFLAX, Military One Source, or if it's legal counsel or medical teams, any commands. So we go in, and I would probably look around, have you invite if you invite me into your home or wherever you stay, I'd probably look around for stuff to identify that what makes you happy, what gives you hope, what would want to keep you around, what would be a reason. So I'd probably look for like photos of like pets, family members. Those are usually like highlights. So going in, you just get very observant. I've had some situations where my observation skills are focused on one thing, like if there's a weapon involved. That's where now I'm kind of in on the weapon, and like, let's try to remove that first. Let's subtract before we start adding. I like to say it that way. Um, so yeah, you start peeling back the onion. So if something triggered you, and I could see body, emotion, if I brought up like, say you were married. I don't know if you are or not actually. So say you were married, and maybe that's the reason that you're in these feelings and in these thoughts. If I triggered that, it would now be up to me to decide, like, okay, I'm going to stop talking about this individual. Maybe if you had kids, I would bring the kids in, like, oh, what about little Timmy and Sally, and what would they do if mom wasn't here, and all that. And it can be difficult, but like I said, for one situation, obviously I'll leave out names and commands and all that, but there was a weapon involved, and it's like, let's get the gun out of here, right? Because we show up and it's a bad time.
Yeah.
And the first thing that he had one of his members of leadership there, and that individual was like, I'm staying here, and I was like, you're really not though, because you might be the problem.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. So he was like, well, what happens if something happens to you? And I was like, if it happens, it happens. Like, let me do my part. Let me try. So that's really where you have to try and be a professional, but try to find, then you got to set aside anything you've got going on and really hone in on that individual that deserves the care, the comfort, the support, and deserves the process, essentially.
So I guess I kind of have a question, and I don't know if how you'll answer it, but
Yeah.
after after you've talked this person down, because they're usually a Marine, right? Usually we'll use that. How does that, like you talking to them, affect their career going forward? Because I know I even have a couple of people who've reached out to me since starting the podcast and being like, My biggest thing is I'm scared to get therapy because I don't want it affecting my pros and cons.
Yeah.
So if people
Sorry.
are scared of just getting therapy, I can't imagine how they would feel knowing that there's a Marine coming to specifically talk to them because they know that they're having suicidal ideations.
Yeah. So, I would say, um, it. I hate to say it, but it depends on the individual. So, there's nothing legally besides maybe like administrative separation, but that takes time too to build up. Hopefully, I pray on it, right? So I have aspirations to be a first sergeant one day, for real, because everybody asks me
I
like,
can
oh,
see it.
everybody's like, why? And it's because a first sergeant is for the people.
Yes.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad. You have to be able to do both, and I think I really could master that. And I've taken examples from good leadership, bad leadership, and I've kept it all because even the bad you learn from, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I would say that I think it has to do with the individual. How receptive are they of care? How receptive are they of certain involvement? So step by step. Have you ever heard of the acronym RACE?
I think so.
So
My acronyms I've learned in the course of this life being in the Marines
oh
and
yeah.
the law enforcement. Ugh.
So got you've got RACE, which is one that I always try to use. You got recognize, act, care, and escort. So yeah, it's coming back, right?
Yeah.
So recognize is somebody's already recognized the issue, or that individual's recognized it in themselves. They're acting because they're saying something about it. So I'll use you as an example. If I saw that something was going on with Shauna and I thought that I need to bring it up, I recognize maybe behavior changes. Maybe I recognize certain stressors that have occurred. Maybe you lost a loved one, or maybe a financial issues that I've heard about, or maybe you've talked to me about these things already. So I've already recognized that, hey, we're getting there. We're starting to go from green and into yellow, maybe to orange. Red is when you absolutely need help. Uh, so then I would ask. So A being ask. Sorry, I think I said act, but it's ask. And that is probably the hardest part. The first the first day of assist training is learning how to ask somebody if they're thinking about killing themselves or thinking about taking their own life, or if suicide's an actual option.
But you know
Because
what I think that fear stems from, at least for me, is that I'm afraid that if they weren't thinking it prior, if I say something about it, that it's gonna be like, oh, that's a great option. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like if it already seem off and I'm already worried about it,
Hmm.
being like, are you gonna do it? It's just gonna be like them like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then my concern is like, okay, well then I have to deal with that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like then we
they
have to
take us
address
through
that.
like a tree, really, and it looks funky because it's like if you ask the question, you either have no or yes. And if it's yes, you absolutely know where we're going from there. But if it's no, there's always that thought in my mind, like, what if they're just lying to me because they just want me to shut up and move along?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a fear. It is a real fear. So you have to, again, that kind of goes with who you are as an individual. I try to make myself extremely approachable to anybody. In fact, I'm probably more approaching to anybody. I was raised by a single mom, so that kind of goes in line with courteous, respectful, being genuine, treating everybody with respect until they prove you otherwise. Like my mom was tough as nails. Like she was a G. So
Love
she
that.
kept it real. Yeah, yeah. Oh, she was a thug.
Love.
Yeah. So going back to asking the question, then if you get the answer that I don't want to say you're hoping for, this is a better lack of terms, but that you were expecting, maybe a
Yeah.
yes, then it's like now you're immediately providing care. So
Yeah.
whether that's reassurance, or you're starting to target maybe some of that hope if you know it, starting to talk about like resources, stuff like that, why we can make this work. And then the most important one, absolutely, is the escort. So imagine I'm a corporal, you're a lance corporal. I see what's going on. I address it with you. You answer yes. I start reaffirming like why you should stick around. I'm here to help XYZ, talking about the resources. Now escort. If you're like, yeah, I want to go talk to the chaplain. At that point in time, it is 100% my obligation to take you. And that's where people fail, if I'm being honest, because they're just like, oh, okay, well, let me go tell somebody else and then we can.
Yeah.
No, like if you are that trusted individual that somebody said yes to your question, you should probably be the same trusted individual that's like, hey, you want to go see the chaplain? I'm going with you. Boom, just like that. Whether you like me or not, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
Because you trusted me and you answered yes. So I'm going to absolutely go with you. Why would I sit there and be like, all right, well, let's go talk to First Sergeant and First Sergeant will take you? Like, again, that might bring up the problem of why you're here.
What I think
And
is important to talk about with that is don't even think of it as just the military, because this can apply to real life.
anywhere, anywhere.
Yeah, because veterans even still, like if you're, because when you get out and you transition, you, oh, these are my Marine buddies, but that, you know, they become veterans.
Yep.
And it's, they still have a very similar mindset where they don't want to get that help, or they don't want to seem weak,
Yep.
or whatever. So being that escort, even after being out, or even if you have no military affiliation, if someone is relying on you, if they by admitting it to you, that's them saying
Yep.
yes to you, and
Yeah,
they're not saying that to anybody else. So that becomes your responsibility, and you should be honored for that responsibility.
Oh, at 100%. I use this same acronym, this same style with somebody who's not in the military. They're actually friends with my wife, and they were like, I'm fearing for my dad's life. And my wife was like, you should call Mike and see what he's got to say. And she just walked me through the whole thing. And I said, if your dad has already told you, he's trusting you. He might not have told any of your sisters or your brother or whatever, but you should probably be the one to go with him to get help. So that one, they don't feel alone. Two, they feel that like that constant care and support. And two, because you are that trusted individual. That's a 100% obligation, in my opinion.
I agree.
So yeah, I think that that's where we kind of like lose ourselves a little bit. Now, here's the alternative, I say, because some people really aren't designed to be that individual. Like they heard the yes, they know the resources, but they might not be comfortable. They might be like, hey, are you okay with? And I always leave this as an option. It's not that you're passing it off, but it's like you might not know the resources or what that person's looking for. So it also goes in hand with knowing who is good at what we're looking for. So, for example, back to you, if this was a me and you conversation and I'm ready to like, try and help you, if I'm just like, hey, well, Sergeant so and so is really good at this. Like, do you care if we bring him or her in, whatever? And you might be up to the idea. And I'd be like, I know they know tons of resources. I'm going to stay with you 100% of the way, but I don't want to fail you as your friend, because imagine if we're two Lance Corporals and we don't know shit together.
Yeah.
I might not even know how to spell MCCS, right? I might not even know what's really there, but I might not even know where medical's at because I've never been, or like one of those things. So I think also knowing who in your chain of command is good at what they do, that's an alternative. So you don't have to always be you don't always have to be the one, but I tend to like to be, because, I like to believe I'm good at what I do,
And like in all cases, the chaplain is a good person to go talk to in those scenarios, right?
See, now, I'll be honest. I was raised Christian. My wife's family's super Catholic. Yeah, we were shunned to the depths of hell when they found out she was pregnant before marriage. And that's me being real. Yeah. But I love them regardless. I would do anything for her mom, her sisters, her brother, anything.
And you have like
her nieces.
four beautiful daughters later, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do have four beautiful daughters, and this is for any man out there that thinks that they're gonna come in here and just do whatever, these young boys or whatever. I'm watching you, like a hawk. I've got buddies that are willing to do the dirty work for me. Like, don't get it twisted. All right, I know I walk around with a smile and laughs, but we ain't gonna be laughing at the end. Sorry, that's my full disclosure.
No,
And
I'm here for it. It's
that's
okay.
that was actually me practicing, because my oldest is only 12. So that was me practicing for when the first.
I was like, I think I just watched your videos. They're not old enough to date anyway. There's no way this movie.
Yeah. As I sit here and drink a Capri Sun and whatnot, like.
That is so funny.
But yeah, so I think just Yeah, having that kind of mentality of, always referring to the chaplain. They are phenomenal resources, don't get me wrong. But there is a lot of stipulation that you think you're going to go in there and you're going to see like Mother Mary and baby Jesus in the cradle, and that's the horrible perception. I'm not knocking anybody's religion
Oh
by
yeah,
any means.
no,
I think you should believe in whatever it is.
me too.
I just had my own falling out with God at some point, working my way back to it a little bit. I will say this: there's one thing I do believe in. Sorry, I believe that things work out for a reason. Like things happen for a reason, whether you like it at that time or you may never know why it did that. But you got to have faith in either a higher power if that's your thing, or at least have faith in yourself. And that's the truth. So I think there is stipulation, but no, I would never turn away somebody from being like, "Hey, I want to go to the chaplain." I'm not gonna be like, "Well, you do know that, you know."
No,
Yeah,
honestly,
you're gonna be
always,
splashed with holy water at the beginning. You know that, right? Like, no, I would never do that.
the chaplain for me was just always like a I didn't even see it as like a religious thing. It was like if I needed information,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the most knowledgeable.
I actually felt more comfortable probably going to like the RP, like the little RP3 or whatever, just being like, "Yo, homie, what's good?" And they're
Oh
just
yeah,
building the chaplain's PowerPoint, just kicking it,
we had
drinking the holy
female.
water.
I just remember we had a female chaplain. She was a badass. She was a badass. Like she was just a baddie.
Yeah.
But she was also like a chaplain, and it was just what she was.
Yeah. So I also think it's on the chaplain too, like based on, again, this has a lot to do with like what you get at face value.
Right. What kind of human we're dealing with at that time.
Correct. Like I had a chaplain in one unit that was pretty I mean, they have to be religious. It was almost like a little overwhelming, if I'm being honest.
I know exactly what you mean. There's chaplains that you're like they don't even bring up religion, and there's people like their purpose is religion.
Yes, and I mean, hey, they studied for it, and they that's what they do, and that's their job. And I 100% don't even mean the praying hands. Appreciate them, 100% appreciate those individuals because that job is just as enduring as anybody else's, if not more. So no, I would say, yeah, chaplains, you got it. Thank you. Oh yeah.
All right. So I also want to talk about your podcast and how you started doing that. You've had some awesome guests on too already. So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I would say my podcast only rolls because of the guests.
I mean, me too.
I'm always looking for like the next story because I started podcasting because I got hurt back in 2021 where I was on convalescent leave for 120 days.
Jeez.
So really had nothing to do except for watch my twins like fuck up the living room and like, fuck shit up and drive their mom nuts. So I was like, hey, let's find a new hobby. So I kind of just like invested in some small equipment and then would set it up in my garage, and my buddies that were on my team would come over and we would just shoot the shit and record it, right? Thinking like, I feel like that's like how you start. You rely on those buddies that are like, oh, I'm willing to talk about anything and whatever. And you try to set some baseline and whatever, but it doesn't work. No, so I'm forever grateful for those dudes. Long live Echo, because they really got me, going. And then I had a lot of things happen. So, I had my brother's death, my dad's death, my injury, my mom's death, all those things. My dog died. Like there was a lot of stuff that kind of just came, overflowing at one point. Then, come around, my father-in-law dies. So,
Jesus.
yeah, right. It's like, so everybody always asks me like, how do you describe that period of time? And I always say underwater. Like it just, no matter how many swim calls I do, I just have to like learn how to tread water, stay afloat. But then you have those buddies or those resources or just random people you meet that will help you stay afloat. So I got started in podcasting because I had the opportunity to have my story told on multiple platforms. I got to do a podcast for a company called 1 Mile 1 Vet. I did a podcast for a company called the Overwatch Collective. I got to be a part of the Wounded Warrior Games. So then I got to be in Marine Corps Times. A lot of like different areas where I could tell my story and my piece. And so then I was like, you know what? I want to allow others to do the same thing. Because I truly believe that if you have confident individuals or people that are comfortable with talking about their trials and tribulations, hopefully my target is that anybody that's listening or watching can take something from it and feel comfortable with something that they've got going on. So if we were talking about, like I'll bring up my buddy Drew Harrison, right? So he's a lower leg amputee, and now he tried out for like the Paralympics for his home country, the Virgin Islands. He's a
That's
retired Marine
amazing.
officer. So yeah, oh dude's an animal.
Love that.
Built like a unit. He's an animal. Um, but so my real thought was like, for somebody like him who is an athlete still and is putting himself out there, still funny and finds humor, super intelligent, and has learned a lot about himself. He was our first guest, and our idea for him was for him to talk about the actual things of losing your leg. And he got into like an emotional state of talking about being in like a denial phase, thinking that he was maybe some type of lizard and his leg would grow back, right? But that wasn't the
Oh,
case. So he also talked about how much his wife was affected by the overall situation. And the idea was for that him to tell his story and talk about resiliency and courage, and hopefully anybody listening, they might not have lost a limb, but they might resonate with something there. So we try to get a wide range of guests, people that really offer. We've had guests from amputees to comedians to Marine Corps cooks / bodybuilders. We've had psychologists on. We just had the social media sensation Kagan Dunlap. Um, yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. So I would tell him to his face. He had a good story, but he definitely helped me boost my numbers. I would tell him that. Good dude, has a wealth of knowledge. We just had a retired master sergeant on that spent 17 years in MARSOC as a critical skills operator, and now he like owns a bar in the local area. He also started his own skydiving business and stuff like that. So, but we talk about his trials and tribulations too. So people see all these cool individuals and they're like, wait, they go through shit too? And you're like, yes, it's okay. It's normal. So that's really how I got started. And um, all the stuff is filmed like legitimately in my living room.
I love
And it's,
that.
yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, maybe I should move it to the bed, like me and the guests, like in the bed, right? Because I see you sitting on your bed. Like, I felt like it was comfy. I felt like that'd be like a funny take. But no,
Yeah, this is where I always do it. I guess. I mean, we're doing a similar. We're doing it for similar reasons.
yep.
Because I did it when I got out of the military. I felt super lost and alone. I felt so alone, and I went from feeling like I had all these people around me to not feeling like I had anything. And I was also going through postpartum depression and going through all this stuff that I didn't know at the time. And I was very dark, very deep, and I completely lost who I was. And when it took me years to get out of
Yep.
it, and I still feel there's parts of me that I still feel like are trapped there
Yep.
sometimes. But I was like, I want something that people can watch or listen, or anyone who sees me and is like, oh, she has it all together. They can see my podcast and see like, no, and they
Yeah.
can relate to it, and then maybe I can help one person that feels alone realize that you're not alone.
No.
It's just the time frame that you're going through, and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
I agree 100%. Yeah, a lot of people are like, are you willing to like get in a studio and do it more professionally? And I'm like, man, I always try to do it in person because to me, like, I like to see the raw, like, story. I like to see the emotion building. I like to see the excitement when they tell their story, or maybe the slight sadness when they're going through, something that was a hardship or, tough for them. So I I always just want to do it in person. I don't know. I feel like I'm just a true. Plus, I feel like generally, and this is really boasting and bragging. I think that I look better in person rather than on screen. So, I have to work that in because I don't got a whole lot going. I'm bald. I've got a ridiculous mustache. I've got tattoos that made me look like I went to prison or something. That's what my mom used
Me
to
too.
say. So
What I like about this for me is because I feel so busy and chaotic all the time because I'm an artist, I'm a hairstylist, I'm a bartender, and then I'm doing this on the side hoping that I can make a little bit of a difference. And this is just so low key for me because I already look cute because I went to work today, and now this is like squeezing an hour into my day for me to like talk and get to know somebody that's this is going to be out there for everyone to see how I am, but whatever.
yeah, I
Um,
was I was banking on you looking cute because I did not. So I was like, one of us has to look good. I'm hoping it's her because it can't be me. If you were depending on me for that, then we would have had issues. People probably would have not tuned in at all.
well, luckily I had to work, so I kind of did myself up for just for you.
But what I was gonna say too is you brought up like the similarities in what we do, and when I first started, somebody was like, you know how many podcasts are like that nowadays, and I'm like, yeah, but here's the trick: you can't get enough of them.
No.
Because the more and more people hear, whether it's Shauna talking, Mike talking, or me speaks, anything like that, like you have a wide range of people that are here to help. Why are we not being utilized? Why are we not, I'm not saying like, oh, pay attention to me or like, oh, pay attention to my friends who also do this, but it's like, here we are.
Yeah.
We want to get it out there. We want to talk about it and we want you to feel comfortable. So whether you like listening to one more than the other, I wouldn't say there's ever a competition. We just all want to help. Like that's it.
We're on it
Like,
together right now, and I love that.
yep.
And what I'll say is, like, the person, the people, the personalities is what draws you to that person. And if I was actually just talking to the last person I was interviewed about it, if I interview somebody that maybe someone's not particularly fond of my interviewing style or how I am on the camera or whatever, if I'm not your cup of tea, but they happen to scroll past one of my guests and they're like, they catch a snippet of a podcast and they're like, oh, that I can resonate with that. And now they're
Yep.
following my guest that was on. Like, that's what I want.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's all I care about is people finding whatever makes them feel like they're in the right spot
Yep.
or following the right people.
100%. That's like, hey, it kind of goes back to the whole like find your resource kind of thing. So I think what you're doing is great,
Thanks.
and I think that you're nailing it. Oh, I appreciate it. You didn't have to say that though. This is your podcast, so I got to give you all the props. No, for real, keep doing what you're doing because it does make a difference. It does work. I actually like was joking with people. I wanted to ask you if you were cool with it. How did you come up with the name of your show?
Yeah, no, has to do when people would like when I'd be out with the guys and they would be like someone would come up with them being in the service, the waitress or whatever, like if we were out to eat and we were sitting with all a bunch of guys and they were like, oh, thank you for your service. And they'd be like, oh yeah, well she's in too. And then like when they walked away, the guys would be like, thank you for your service.
Oh yeah.
And that was just what it always like it just jokes with that. And then I was like, that may be a good podcast name. And honestly, that was as soon as I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast, that was the first thing that came into my head, and I was like, well, that's the name. It works. It's me.
I've had so ever since scheduling with you, I've had like the full what do I want to say, like gratitude and happiness when people are like, oh, what podcast are you going to be a guest on or whatever? And I was like, oh, it's called Thank Me for My Cervix. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, dude, that's a hilarious name. If you're not about it, then don't watch. But like for real, like you got to get behind some of these funny things like that. So I truly appreciate your name. I think it's hilarious.
Thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's spot on. It's funny.
I think it fits what I'm trying to go for because like right now when I'm interviewing people, I feel like I'm mostly like getting to know people, but it's fun because then you like if you watch like a solo episode with me or if my sister comes on and there's people that I know really comfortably, you can really see like how I am, and Thank Me for My Cervix just fits that.
No, that's awesome. I like the name. I think it's awesome. I give it 10 out of 10. That's solid.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to follow you and support you, where is the best place for them to do that?
Oh man. Yeah, so Instagram. I was gonna try and make a joke, but I didn't. Um, Yeah, no. So, yeah, Instagram. So my Instagram is CapDilf. So CapTDilf. It should come up with a cool picture of me with Prince Harry. That's how I draw people in. I promise it's real, but yeah, that's me. And then if they want to follow my podcast, it's Stashed Away Thoughts, all one word, underscore podcast. And both of those, I really don't do Facebook, TikTok, anything. I think TikTok I got in trouble with my wife because she could hear the certain tones going off and she knew I was looking at booty cheeks or something like that. That's me being real. Um, I think she knew like by the tone or like the song going on. She's like, man, this man is ass cheeks.
Oh my God, I love her.
Oh yeah, no,
She's
my
like,
wife, my wife is just as cool as me, just as funny, but so much prettier than me. Like, I'm so serious. Gentlemen, if you're listening, take the leap of faith, or women, take the leap of faith. Try to, try to play out of your league. Put some confidence behind yourself. Just show the individual who you really are, and just, it'll work. I promise.
I
Because
love that advice.
I mean,
That's great advice. Be you, because
yeah,
guys
because
love it.
I don't know how I landed my wife. I really don't. Like me.
Baddies love real ones.
Mm,
That's just
amen. Amen. Back to the chaplain. Amen.
thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to me
Oh
today.
my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast and I hope you got a little bit of info
Oh, it
and
was
yeah,
awesome. It was
awesome.
awesome. You were so awesome.
I
And yeah,
appreciate it.
I will my goal is to put audio up on Tuesdays on Spotify. So, and this will be
Oh,
up for everyone to watch the
I,
replay.
I go through the same struggle where it's like I tell people like, hey, we're gonna have this done, and then I sit there on my couch and I'm like, dude, I'm not doing it. Like being a two-man team, or in your case, a one woman team, like I hats off to
Thanks.
you because I look at my audio guy and I'm like, dude, JP, can you please like run this or something? Like, can you edit? Like, I don't feel like doing it.
I feel like if you ever actually listened to the audio on Spotify, you'd be like, "Oh, she's a one-woman show."
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So, yeah. No, I appreciate it nonetheless. I think you're doing great. Seriously, shout out to you. Thank me for my cervix. That is awesome. 10 out of 10 on the name, and I really appreciate you having me
Thank
on.
you so much. Thank
Awesome.
you.
I'll be.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I'll be real. I don't know how to end this. Hopefully you do.
I'll call it.